formed in 1985 in Moscow, Russia, by guitarist Vladimir Holstinin and bassist Alek Granovsky. Putting a band together in the Soviet Union wasn't exactly easy due to government regulations. However, there was clearly an underground desire for metal music. And with Valery Kapelov on vocals, Alexander Lvov on drums, and Kirill Pekrovsky on keyboards, Aria would record and independently release their debut album, Megalomania. Megalomania has an overall new wave of British heavy metal feel with hooky riffs, heavy bass, and great guitar work. Even though it was filmed later on, and with a different lineup, the closing track, America Left Behind, would eventually get a video. At first, we see the band both playing a Christopher Columbus-themed board game and rocking out on one of his ships. But eventually they find a treasure chest full of knives and lose interest in the board game altogether. Since Vladimir had played both guitar parts while recording, they needed a second guitarist to play live. So Andrei Bolshakov was brought on, and around the same time, Igor Molchanov would replace Alexander Lvov on drums. Interestingly, the lyrics on this album, and in fact the majority of all Aria's songs, weren't written by the band, but by Russian poets like Margarita Pushkina and Alexander Yelin. Aria's second album, Who Are You With?, would come out a year later. Also independently released, this album continues the straightforward riff-heavy sound from the first. Who Are You With, for the most part, has a Judas Priest meets Accept kind of feel to it, along with a bass solo track by Alek and a slower ballad in the middle. Despite virtually no media support, Aria were gaining popularity. However, internal division over band direction and management would cause the band to split. Alek, Andrei, Igor, and Kirill would leave to form the thrash band Master, with Vladimir and Valery remaining to rebuild Aria. They'd bring on bassist Vitaly Dubinin, guitarist Sergei Mavrin, and drummer Maxim Udolov to record their third album, Hero of Asphalt. This album would finally get an official release on Melodia, the state-owned record company of the Soviet Union. The cover features a badass motorcycle warrior dude who looks like he's down to fight, or race, or both. And honestly, it's a pretty good interpretation of the music on the album. Vitaly brings in a much more Iron Maiden sound with galloping bass lines on a few of the tracks that really enhance the excellent guitar work. Street of Roses would technically be Aria's first video, which is a mix of a stage show and behind-the-scenes tour footage. They show the audience, and I can't figure out who the people at the front are supposed to be. Like, are they holding the crowd back? And why does that guy look so sad? Hero of Asphalt, or Hero of a Speedway, sure, still has the raw energy of the first two Aria albums, but it also has more of a compositional feel, with a lot of great musical passages. By 1988, issues with management would cause Maxim to leave the band. With new drummer Alexander Manyakin on board, and under new management, Aria would release their fourth album, Playing with Fire, in 1989. This album takes the compositional feel from the previous one and turns it up a notch with epic melodies and even more elaborate solos. It's easy to see why Playing with Fire is regarded as one of the best Russian heavy metal albums. The musicianship is excellent, and there's even more bass worked in with the guitar solos. And I'm not really sure what he's singing about, but I also have to point out Valeri's excellent vocals as well. The closing track, Give 'Em Hell, also got a video. The video is all concert footage with a huge crowd. I especially like the Russian soldiers up front just rocking out.
Ну, каждый по-разному, так сказать, переживает концерт. Кто-то стоит у сцены, кто-то может просто сидеть и слушать, там все равно знает все наши песни, может петь не вслух, а про себя. Вот. То есть мы ко всем относимся одинаково хорошо, с любовью.
Фанаты, которые перед сценой стоят, они же тоже наши, понимаешь, но они только воспринимают это по-своему. А те, кто сидит и хлопает, это же тоже нормально.
Aria would celebrate their 5th anniversary against the backdrop of the fall of the Soviet Union. And in 1991, Aria's 5th album, Blood for Blood, would be the first to be released on a private label, Syntez Records. This was also the third album with music written primarily by Vitaly and Vladimir, full of outstanding melodic power metal, elaborate solos, and an undeniable Iron Maiden aesthetic. But while the Iron Maiden touches are obvious, it never feels derivative. Aria manages to take those Maiden-esque elements and use them to create their own sound. also 2 tracks with music written by Valeri on this one, including a ballad called All That Was. In the video, we see Valeri being all sad and looking at a necklace. Then he tries to put it in his pocket, but it won't fit, so he just drops it. He heads over to a table and starts drinking either water or vodka. I'm leaning vodka. He tries to slide the glass down the table, but even that doesn't work out. He sits there for a bit, maybe considering cleaning that light bulb up there, when he suddenly notices the necklace in a bucket full of water or vodka. Valeri reaches for it, but it disappears. He's really annoyed by this and kicks the bucket over.
Все, что было, свет мой, чистый и святой. Все, что было, рок мой, жадный и слепой. Все, что будет, лес мой, 7 кругов пройти мне в огненной пустыне.
And then we see Sergei playing his guitar with a beer can, which I don't think is actually possible, but is still pretty metal. The necklace keeps showing up and pushing Valeri's buttons. Until he's finally had enough and shows the necklace who's boss. The fall of the Soviet Union lifted restrictions on rock music and allowed Aria to go mainstream. However, the country's economic situation in the early 90s made it difficult to put on shows.
Когда распался Советский Союз, мы потеряли всякую возможность выступать. Это был такой экономический коллапс в стране, что, естественно, наложило свой отпечаток на культуру, скажем так. То есть не было прокатчиков, не было промоутеров, которые бы занимались этим. У народа элементарно не было денег, поэтому все просто пришло не то что в упадок, просто застопорилось на несколько лет. Но потом, степ-бай-степ, все опять возродилось.
In 1994, Aria would create their own recording studio and sign a 5-year contract with Moros Records. Despite this, it would seem there was still some uncertainty within the band. After a few weeks of Valeri not showing up for recording sessions, he was found to be secretly playing with Master. Once Aria started trying out new singers in early 1995, Sergei would quit the band, allegedly convinced that Aria wouldn't succeed without his good friend Valeri. He'd be replaced by Sergei Terentiev. But Moros Records wanted those sweet Kapelov vocals on the album and told him to finish recording or he'd be in breach of contract. Regardless of whatever internal issues may have been going on, Aria's 6th record, Night is Shorter Than Day, is another solid album. In fact, I even like it a little better than Blood for Blood. There are tons of great tracks on there, but personally, it's worth it for Spirit of War alone. Iron Maiden's Fear of the Dark album seems to be a heavy influence here, and again, Aria manages to take elements of 90s Iron Maiden and put their own spin on it, like the track Paranoia, which starts off with an opening clearly inspired by Iron Maiden's Afraid to Shoot Strangers. Then goes off into its own awesome track. The ballad on the album, Take My Heart, got a video. Half of it is a little jam session.
Слепая ночь легла у ног и не пускает за порог. Брожу по дому, как во сне, но мне покоя нет нигде.
And the other half is the band pulling pranks on each other and generally just having a great time recording together.
А в зеркалах качнется призрак любви.
This one starts off slow, but about halfway through it dips into a more 90s hard rock sound.
Я слышу утренний колокол, он славит праздник и сыпет медью и золотом, и теперь в царстве вечного сна.
With the release of their 7th album, Generator of Evil, Aria would continue to expand on their sound.
Смотри, близится финал, этот век все силы растерял, словно старый зверь, раненый зимой.
Also, the cover of the album seems to be a nod to another one of Aria's influences, with its similarity to Helloween's Keeper of the Seven Keys album cover. But while previous albums mostly had a full-on power metal feel, this one has some blues, more progressive elements, and I feel like a bit more of a hard rock sound overall. This album actually got 2 videos. One is for Dirt, which is mostly imagery from around the Bill Clinton impeachment trial.
Какая грязь, какая власть, и так приятно в эту грязь упасть. Пошла чертям манеры и контроль, сорвать все маски и быть просто собой.
The other is for a track titled Hermit, which is mostly imagery from old movies like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Frankenstein, and Nosferatu.
Стану тобою, ты станешь мною, верным сыном зла.
I think Generator of Evil does require a couple of listens to fully get into, but it's very good overall, and it's really interesting to hear some different sides to the band. In 1999, Aria released a compilation of their ballads called 2001 Night, which also included 2 new tracks, Who Are You and Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost has Aria playing with a full-on orchestra, as seen in the video.
От края до края небо в огне сгорает, и в нем исчезают все надежды и мечты.
There's also an extra from one of the Matrix movies doing interpretive dance nearby for some reason. It's a slow burn, but it builds to a really cool ending.
Засыпай, на руках у меня засыпай, засыпай, под пение дождя, далеко, там, где небо танцует.
From 1995 to about 2000, Aria was helped out of their financial situation by Harley Davidson, who offered them a sponsorship. This led to a whole new level of creativity for the band, with bikes, stunts, and explosions. This show is a pretty good example. Some dude gets thrown off stage along with his bike, then a metal zebra comes out and immediately crashes. Someone just gets set on fire, like, for fun. People set off smoke bombs and fall down. And while all of this batshit crazy stuff is going on, Aria is up there playing Hero of Asphalt in the middle of explosions and motorcycle crashes. Badass. Aria also put out an EP simply titled Tribute to Harley Davidson. There's a Manowar cover on it and a re-recording of Hero of Asphalt. But the biggest hit was actually Careless Angel, a cover of the Golden Earring track, Going to the Run.
Ты летящий вдаль, ангел. Ты летящий вдаль, вдаль.
There's also a karaoke version included, in case you're ever drunk enough to think that your vocals sound better than Valeri's. Aria's 8th studio album, Chimera, would turn out to be the last with singer Valery Kapelov. Released on Classic Company Records, Chimera is a bit uneven, which is kind of understandable given what was about to happen, but there's still great stuff on it. The standout track, though, is The Calm. They'd shoot a video for it with Udo Dirkschneider to promote an upcoming tour together.
Штиль, ветер молчит, упал белой чайкой на дно.
We see the band all hanging out at the recording studio, talking shop and getting ready to play, until it's time for Udo to sing his part.
Штиль, сходим с ума, жара подключена смолой, смерть одного лишних дня.
And then it builds up to a pretty kick-ass chorus.
Что нас ждет, море хранит молчание, жажда жить, слушать сердца дурно.
To celebrate a successful day of recording, the band spends the rest of the video with Udo at the strip club. The track Shard of Ice would also get a video, and there's a lot going on in it with a raven and some woman in a bathtub. But then Valery shows up and opens the front gate with his mind.
Слишком долго выход искали, но шли бесконечно вдоль стены.
In fact, he spends a good amount of the video just mentally opening doors. Until the other band members show up, also dressed in black cloaks. I think the implication is that the band represents death here.
Всё исчезло, не оставит ни следа, и не знает боли, в груди осколок льда.
But I guess they let the lady in the bathtub live, so who knows? With Paradise Lost being a fairly big mainstream hit for Aria, they decide to put on a tour with a full orchestra with the Globalis Symphony Orchestra in 2002. Of course, as we all know by now, orchestras and heavy metal go really well together. Immediately following the classical Aria tour, disagreements over band direction would again split the band apart. While touring with Udo, Vitaly and Vladimir got excited about the prospect of breaking into the Western market. However, the rest of the band were mostly content focusing on their domestic fan base, knowing how difficult and expensive it would be to get attention abroad. With the band completely split, Valery, Sergei, and Alexander would leave Aria and form the band Kapelov, along with Sergei Mavrin. Faced with a huge obstacle to overcome, Vitaly and Vladimir were able to put together a new Aria lineup within 2 months. We know Aria loves guitarists named Sergei, so they brought on Sergei Popov, formerly of Master, on guitar, and Maxim Udolov would return on drums. For the difficult role of replacing their lead singer of 17 years, they'd bring on Arthur Berkut, formerly of the prog band Autograph, and Mavrin, Sergei Mavrin's band after leaving Aria and creating possibly the greatest album cover of 1998. All kidding aside, Arthur Berkut had already worked with a ton of Russian rock bands throughout the 80s and 90s and was one of the best-known rock singers in Russia at the time. With the new lineup ready to go, Aria recorded their 9th album, Baptism by Fire. Needless to say, people weren't sure what to expect. Arthur was polarizing, as any singer probably would have been, and I think the video for the track Colosseum perfectly illustrates Aria's position at the time. We're in a gladiatorial coliseum, with the band getting ready in what appear to be slave quarters. The scene kind of fades back and forth between this combat setting and the band preparing to play a show. Vladimir's swords become his guitars, and Maxim's shield becomes a ride cymbal. As they make their way down the walkway to the arena, the fans throw trash and spit at them, likely representing some of the backlash the band was getting after Valeri had left. But Aria continues on, determined to go out there and prove to those fans that they still kick ass. Of course, by the end, they've won the crowd over. I thought this video was really well done. Aria's instruments are their weapons and the stage is their arena. And even with all the negativity, all they can do is go out and rock. Overall, I really like Baptism by Fire. It never fully goes into Iron Maiden Brave New World territory, but I get some similar vibes from it. But there's also some thrash, as well as a slower track, They're Up High, that got an animated music video.
Там высоко нет никого, там так же одиноко, как и здесь.
But more than anything, Baptism by Fire proved that Aria could still rock even with a new singer.
День, свет, темпу выстраивается жизнь, смерть. Перекликаются шаг, бред, пытка надежды и злость.
Aria's 10th album, Armageddon, was released on CD Maximum. It pretty much sticks to the formula from the previous album, but without the added pressure to prove themselves again, it feels a bit more relaxed too. Baptism by Fire and Armageddon both are easy to listen to. The energy and attitude are there, with lots of great guitar solos. By this time, Aria had also become known for their increasingly elaborate stage shows, with amazing sets, costumes, props, and choreography. And Arthur is really a perfectly fine singer as well. He just doesn't have the power behind his voice that Valeri did. Over the next couple years, Aria would reunite with Valeri and Sergei Mavrin on anniversary shows like the Hero of Asphalt 20th Anniversary Show in 2008 and Aria Fest, celebrating the band's 25th anniversary in 2010. In 2011, Arthur would be let go from Aria. No official reason was given, but to me it seems that a band like Aria, especially at their level, needs a vocalist with a really powerful voice. Aria's 11th album, Phoenix, was released on Union Records and was the first with new singer Mikhail Zitnikov, formerly of the band Grand Courage. His voice sounds like a great fit and really stands out above the music. Phoenix and its follow-up 2014's Through All Times, released by M2BA, are both fairly similar in tone to the Arthur Burkett albums. And while Mikhail started out strong, he seems to get even better on his second album, like on the track Point of No Return. They're well-made albums, and if you like slick guitar solos, heavy riffing, and soaring vocals, you'll find stuff on both of these that you'll like. But frankly, neither of them compare to Aria's 13th album, Curse of the Seas. While Phoenix and Through All Times seemed focused mainly on being good overall albums, on Curse of the Seas, every track has its own personality and energy. Plus, they absolutely nail some of that old-school 80s tone on more than one track, which should maybe come as no surprise since this album was produced by Roy Z, who previously produced solo albums from Bruce Dickinson and Rob Halford. Personally, this album is the best of the 21st century Aria albums, and is a great mix of the classic, fun heavy metal that I have a soft spot for, along with some more progressive-leaning stuff as well. There's also a cool video for the track To Kill the Dragon, which tonally sounds like a mashup of Queens of the Stone Age and Ghost. video looks like a 70s film, with a lot of World War II imagery, like gas masks and smoke, and the band playing on a gallows. There's a bunch of gas mask wearing civilians walking around, and they're all being supervised by creepy guards in bird masks.
Вставай с колен, вдохни смелей свежий воздух. Нельзя всю жизнь никем быть в серой толпе.
Eventually, one of the mindless gas maskers breaks free of whatever's controlling everyone. Meanwhile, the guards have some kind of glowing radio box, and the one dude found some buddies, and they bust into the guard's hideout. The freedom fighter guy is about to break the guard's radio, but stops. At first, I thought he just suddenly decided to not waste a perfectly good glowing radio, but then he suddenly turns into one of those guards instead. Didn't see that coming. Aria's stage shows kept getting bigger as well, with their most ambitious yet in 2019, shot for their live DVD, Guest from the Shadow Kingdom. Most recently, Aria re-recorded both Baptism by Fire and Armageddon with Mikhail, since licensing issues had prevented them from being released internationally. And there wasn't really much else to do in 2020 anyway. And that is Aria, a fantastic, legendary Russian metal band that has remained largely unknown here in the West. They have some absolutely epic albums that I can't recommend highly enough. But I will try. For your homework, check out Megalomania from 1985, Hero of Asphalt from 1987, Playing with Fire or Play with Fire from 1989, Blood for Blood from 1991, Night is Shorter Than Day from 1995, Generator of Evil from 1998, and Curse of the Seas from 2018. For me, these are all beginning to end excellent albums. Now for some extra credit stuff. I actually really like Chimera overall. The more I listened to it, the more it grew on me. And you can also check out both versions of Baptism by Fire and Armageddon to see which you prefer. And I don't want to just dismiss Phoenix and Through All Times because, again, there's nothing really wrong with them. But Curse of the Seas is just on a whole nother level, and I can't wait to see what Aria puts out next. I hope you enjoyed this look at Aria, and I encourage you to check them out. Don't let the language barrier keep you from hearing some metal masterpieces. Thanks for watching.
Yeah!